Judge smirks as black woman stands alone in court, then she summons FBI authorities to expose him. Will her courage bring down a corrupt judge? A single mother stands in front of a cold marble bench, her heart pounding in her chest like a sledgehammer. A smug, silver-haired judge leans forward, lips twisting into a condescending smirk that sends a chill through the packed courtroom. Whispers ripple across the room, but Maya Jackson, despite her trembling knees, stands her ground. She's been wronged, ridiculed, and set up. The judge's racist sneer is as chilling as it is predictable, yet Maya refuses to falter. Little does she know, a secret investigation by the highest authorities of the FBI is already underway, and when the truth comes to light, it will shatter everything. Could a mysterious ally change Maya's fate? Maya Jackson woke that morning with a sense of dread clawing at her insides. She tried her best to shake it off. After all, she had her 6-year-old daughter, Brianna, to think about. The little girl needed her mother strong and focused, yet Maya couldn't help but replay in her mind all the bizarre injustices she'd already faced: her landlord's abrupt notice to vacate, her employer claiming she was caught stealing, and now, unbelievably, a summons to appear in court on charges she never even knew existed until 2 weeks ago. The summons arrived in a plain white envelope, no return address, dropped into her mailbox like an afterthought. When she'd opened it, her heart nearly stopped. The accusations: fraud, misconduct, and breach of contract. Maya had never stolen so much as a penny in her life, but there it was, on official letterhead from the Superior Court of Crestview County. She felt as if her world was unraveling thread by thread. As she dressed for court in the only conservative outfit she had, a knee-length gray skirt and a faded black blazer, she whispered a prayer. She was no stranger to adversity. From the day she was born, the world seemed eager to show her just how uphill her battles would be. Growing up in a rundown Chicago suburb, Maya learned to fight for every opportunity. She studied hard, earned scholarships, and eventually landed a respectable job at a local bank. Her biggest pride was showing Brianna that with perseverance and faith, you could rise above the shackles of your environment. But now, Maya felt the constraints of an invisible system tightening around her. Her mother's voice echoed in her ears, reminding her that justice sometimes wore a twisted grin, but Maya refused to believe that all was lost. She gathered her legal documents, meticulously arranged them in a black folder, and headed out into a crisp morning. She had no lawyer, couldn't afford one at the moment, but she had the truth. When Maya entered the courthouse, she felt eyes on her. It wasn't her imagination. She noticed a few curious glances, a few pitying stares. Perhaps they could see the nerves dancing on her face, or maybe it was the color of her skin in a place rife with archaic decorum. The wide halls were lined with scuffed floors and flickering fluorescent lights. The air smelled faintly of old coffee and fear. She made her way into the assigned courtroom and slipped into a bench. The chaotic buzz of voices bounced off the high ceilings: prosecutors, defendants, attorneys, security guards, they all blended into a swirl of anxious energy. Maya tried to steady her breathing, tried to remain calm. She clutched her folder close to her chest. Moments before the judge took the bench, Maya glanced around. She was alone. No friend or family member had been able to take off work to support her. She cursed her pride for not wanting to beg for help, but more than anything, she wished Brianna wasn't at home with a neighbor, worried sick about what was happening to her mommy. Then the door swung open, and all rose for Judge Ronald Warwick. He was a tall, slender man with slick silver hair that swept back from his temples. His robe hung on him like a cloak of authority, yet what Maya noticed most was his expression. The moment his gaze landed on her, a barely contained smirk curled on his lips. "Be seated," the bailiff commanded, and everyone obeyed in a hushed shuffle. The murmurs quieted to a hush. Maya's heart hammered so hard she feared everyone could hear it. She reminded herself, "I did nothing wrong, I am innocent." But as she locked eyes with Judge Warwick, Maya felt a surge of dread. There was something in his stare, an air of superiority, an undercurrent of contempt, that struck her like a blow to the stomach. She wondered if he'd made his judgment already without hearing a single word. In the hush of the courtroom, Maya silently vowed to fight. She didn't know how, with no lawyer and no funds, but she would not bow to injustice. Little did she know that her struggle in that courtroom was but the tip of the iceberg. Forces far larger, far darker, were at work, and unbeknownst to her, an FBI investigation had already begun. The seeds of truth were already planted, seeds that would eventually topple the smirking judge from his lofty perch. The FBI's voice echoed through the chamber. Case number 4287, the People vs. Maya Jackson charges, fraud, embezzlement, and breach of contract. Whispered gasps rippled through the courtroom gallery. Maya felt each syllable like a hammer blow to her chest. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles whitening, tears threatening to spill. Judge Warwick cleared his throat. Miss Jackson, how do you plead? Maya stood, voice trembling. Not guilty, Your Honor. A faint flicker of amusement danced across the judge's face. Very well, let's proceed with the preliminary hearing. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Jacob Rowan, stepped forward. Maya recognized him from local news broadcasts. He had a reputation for his aggressive style, known to be unstoppable in the pursuit of convictions, no matter how flimsy the evidence. He began reading from a file. According to the allegations, Maya had intentionally manipulated numbers in her role at Crestview Bank, funneling money out of client accounts over a period of 6 months. The total sum mentioned was staggering, over $85,000. Maya's stomach lurched. This was impossible. She had never taken a cent, nor had she ever seen these suspicious accounts she was now accused of tampering with. And furthermore, the prosecutor's voice thundered, Miss Jackson entered into a contractual agreement with the bank that she would uphold the highest standards of integrity. In violating that trust, she also breaches her contract. Maya sat down hard, her mind reeled. Who orchestrated this? Why? Judge Warwick shot her a glance so cold Maya practically felt it pierce her. Miss Jackson, you may speak in your defense, but you do not have representation, is that correct? She nodded, swallowing. Yes, Your Honor, I can't afford an attorney right now. Well, Warwick said, lips turning up in that same arrogant smirk, you do realize this is a serious matter, correct? Yes, Your Honor, I do. He gestured dismissively at the sheaf of papers Maya clutched. What evidence do you have to refute the prosecution's claim? Maya's hands shook as she held up her folder. I have my employment records, performance reports, and references. I also have evidence that on the dates in question, I was working on different assignments. None of the suspicious transactions ever crossed my desk. I never had clearance or access to the accounts in question. The judge leaned back, tapping a pen against the bench. Is that all? She felt her throat constrict. For now, yes, Your Honor. Rowan slid Maya a condescending glance. Your Honor, I would like to request that Miss Jackson be taken into custody, or at least be placed under strict supervision. We have reason to believe she might be a flight risk. Maya gasped audibly. The notion was absurd. She had a daughter, a home, well, the remains of a home. She had no means or desire to flee. Yet, from the corner of her eye, she saw the judge's lips twist again, almost as though he was enjoying this. All right, Warwick said, peering down at Maya, bail is set at $50,000. A hush fell. She had no means to pay even a fraction of that amount. She'd be forced into a bail bonds arrangement if she wanted to taste freedom before trial, if that was even feasible with her meager finances. Maya felt panic rising. The entire situation reeked of something hidden. Why was the bail so high for a non-violent offense? Why were these fraudulent charges pinned on her so suddenly? The hearing ended, and Maya was left with an anxious swirl in her gut as the court officers escorted her toward a holding area to process her for an overnight stay until bail could be arranged. She heard Rowan chuckling with Judge Warwick, the quiet hum of their voices coated in an undercurrent of contempt. She glanced back at them. Eye-stinging Warwick's smirk was the last thing she saw before a guard gently nudged her forward. In the corridor, Maya's head swam with questions, fear, and anger. She tried to recall every day she'd spent at Crestview Bank. She'd been a model employee, arriving early, staying late, no disciplinary actions. She was hardly living lavishly. Her battered old Honda was testament enough to her financial status. So who was behind this malicious accusation? She was taken to a small, pale room with flickering fluorescent lights. There, an officer began the intake process, fingerprints, mugshot, the works. Maya's stomach dropped further with each step, the indignity of it, like she was a criminal. Still, she forced herself to hold her head high for Brianna's sake. This wasn't over. While she waited, she overheard two guards chatting by the door. One guard casually mentioned something about Judge Warwick and his after-hours parties, followed by a sardonic laugh from the other. Maya tried not to listen, but her ears perked up at the mention of the judge's name. Even so, the guards offered no detail, slipping into hushed tones. In that moment, Maya vowed to uncover the truth, whatever it took. If Judge Warwick was crooked, if the prosecutor was in on it, or if someone at the bank had set her up, she would not rest until she exposed them. She only hoped she could muster the resources and courage to face down men with far more power than she. Unknown to Maya, her determination was about to collide with a powerful ally. Somewhere behind the scenes, night fell as Maya was processed into the Crestview County Detention Center. She was given a stiff, narrow cot and a thin blanket, and the fluorescent overhead lights buzzed incessantly, refusing her a peaceful sleep. Her heart ached. She worried for Brianna, worried that her daughter might wake up crying in the middle of the night, missing her mother's comforting presence. Maya choked back tears and reminded herself that this was temporary. It had to be. Across town, in a well-appointed office on the top floor of the Crestview Bank building, a man named Harold Whitcomb sat behind a large mahogany desk. He was the regional director of the bank, a man Maya had rarely encountered during her tenure there. He tapped a fountain pen against a stack of documents in agitation. The clock on the wall read close to midnight, yet his brow was still furrowed with concentration. In front of him sat Kevin McKenzie, one of the bank's board members. Kevin was flipping through a folder with Maya's photograph paper clipped to the inside. The allegations against her were spelled out in black and white, just as the prosecutor had described. "You're certain this is watertight?" Kevin asked, voice tinged with impatience. Harold sucked in a breath. "As long as the judge and Rowan do their jobs, Maya Jackson will take the fall. She doesn't have the means to fight this, and if she does try, well, we have our ways." Kevin eyed him skeptically. "I don't like it. The timeline looks messy, and Maya doesn't strike me as the type." Her performance reviews were stellar. "She's never shown any sign of misconduct." Harold shrugged. "That's precisely why she's the perfect scapegoat. People will be shocked, but that shock will fade once a conviction is secured. Meanwhile, we'll ensure that no one traces the missing funds back to where they really went." A silence fell. Harold's gaze flickered to a corner of his office where a security camera blinked a little red light. Better to keep details vague, he reminded himself. Kevin closed the folder. "Fine, I'll trust your judgment, but if anything backfires, the blame is on you. I won't let the bank's reputation burn because of a single employee you decided to frame." Frame, the word was so blatant. Harold merely nodded. If Maya was too naive to see it coming, that was her problem. Later that night, as Maya dozed fitfully in her cell, a slender, bespectacled man paced the living room of his modest apartment, a laptop open on the table. His name was Special Agent David Chan, stationed at the FBI's Chicago field office. Though not a high-ranking official, he'd been working on a hunch: unexplained funds siphoned off from local corporations. A whistleblower inside Crestview Bank had tipped him off about suspicious financial movement. On a hunch, Sean had begun to dig, and Maya Jackson's case popped up with bright, flashing alarms. The details were far too convenient: a model employee suddenly accused of embezzlement. The entire narrative smelled of corruption. Clicking through encrypted files, Sean noted Maya's impeccable record: a single mother, relatively new to the city, known for her honesty and diligence, no prior brushes with the law. Yet here she was, charged with orchestrating a complex financial crime. Chan's gut told him Maya was a pawn in a larger scheme. A message pinged on Chan's phone: "Heard Maya Jackson was processed tonight, no bail posted yet, she's rotting in a cell." The message came from an anonymous contact he'd made within the courthouse. The swirl of suspicion around Judge Warwick's name only fueled Chan's concerns. Warwick had a track record of questionable rulings when the defendants were people of color, particularly those with limited means. Chan scribbled notes in a small, leather-bound journal: "Maya Jackson, designated suspect or scapegoat? Potential collusion, Crestview Bank leadership, Judge Warwick, ADA Rowan. Keep investigating." Unknown to Maya, small gears were already turning in her favor. The FBI might not be a monolith that swoops in at the drop of a hat, but individual agents with integrity still existed. They saw patterns others would dismiss. They cared enough to question the status quo. Soon, Chan would bring his findings to his superiors. The name Maya Jackson would land on the desk of someone with power, someone who could tip the scales of justice. Meanwhile, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her dim cell. She wondered how she'd gotten here, so alone and cornered. She thought about Brianna's bright smile, about the child's sweet, unshakable faith in her mother. That single memory gave Maya the courage to endure. She prayed quietly, the words spilling out in the stillness of the detention center, "I will prove my innocence." But Maya had no idea how deep the corruption went, nor how dangerous her enemies truly were. Judge Warwick, with his smarmy grin and deep ties in Crestview's old boy network, was only the tip of the spear. If Maya intended to bring him down, she would be tangling with a system designed to protect men like him. Yet, destiny was already weaving threads beyond Maya's comprehension. In a few days, the first glimmer of hope would come from an unexpected source, and the ripple effect of that hope would reach all the way to the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C., the FBI's headquarters. Early the next morning, Maya found herself escorted back into the courtroom. She looked disheveled, exhausted, yet she tried to stand tall. She'd managed to contact a bail bondsman overnight who agreed to post her bail in exchange for a loan Maya would be paying off for years, but Maya would do anything to be back with her daughter. The judge, again presiding with his cold, smug demeanor, asked if Maya intended to secure an attorney. She nodded, but with her finances in disarray, she wasn't sure if she could afford decent counsel. Judge Warwick insisted the trial date be set within 3 weeks, an unusually fast turnaround for a fraud case. The speed only intensified Maya's anxiety. Usually, such cases took months to prepare, but Maya suspected Warwick wanted to rush through to ensure she had minimal time to mount a credible defense. As she stepped out of the courtroom, Maya was approached by a petite woman with curly brown hair and striking green eyes. She wore a simple blouse and slacks, carrying a stack of papers in her arms. "Miss Jackson, wait." Maya turned, confused. "Yes?" The woman extended a business card, "Rebecca Murphy, investigative journalist, Crestview Times." "I've been following your case," she said softly, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "Something about it doesn't add up. Would you be willing to talk to me?" Maya hesitated, glancing at the card. She was wary of the press, concerned about sensational headlines, but Murphy's voice had a sincerity that tugged at Maya's instincts, and Maya did need help, someone, anyone, who could shine a light on the truth. "Yes, I'll talk to you." "Thank you," Rebecca said, relief evident in her tone. "I'll message you to set up a time." "You're not alone in this." Maya's tears stung her eyes. She nodded, pressing her lips together before walking away. By late afternoon, Maya had returned to her modest apartment. She found her daughter coloring quietly at the kitchen table under the neighbor's watchful eye. The moment Brianna saw Maya, she dashed across the room, small arms flinging around her mother's waist. Maya knelt, hugging her child close, inhaling the sweet scent of bubblegum shampoo. For an instant, the burden lifted. She was home, at least for now. "How was your night, Mommy?" Brianna asked, her wide eyes blinking in curiosity. Maya gently smoothed back the child's braids. "It was fine. I missed you so much." For a few precious moments, she allowed herself to forget the looming darkness of the case. Yet, practical matters soon demanded her attention. She had no job now, no income, legal fees loomed, as did the possibility of a lengthy prison sentence if she failed to clear her name. That evening, Maya and Rebecca Murphy met in a quiet corner of a local cafe. Maya recounted everything: the suspicious charges, the judge's smirk, the abnormally high bail, and how her entire world flipped upside down. Rebecca listened intently, taking notes. When Maya finished, the journalist leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowed. "I've heard rumors about Judge Warwick. He's known to take hush-hush campaign contributions from wealthy donors, usually real estate moguls, bankers, you name it. Then he repays them with favorable rulings. But I've never been able to nail him with hard proof. He's well connected, and any time I got close, my sources dried up." Maya's pulse quickened. "So you think the bank might be behind this, some sort of arrangement with Warwick?" Rebecca tapped her pen on her notepad. "If the bank's leadership needed someone to blame for missing funds, someone to distract from their own wrongdoing, Maya, you'd be the perfect scapegoat, a low-level employee, an easy target. And if Warwick is in their pocket, he'll ensure that your side of the story is suppressed." Maya's throat tightened. "That can't be legal." "Can we prove it?" "That's what I intend to find out. If I find hard evidence, I'll publish it." The public deserves to know. They exchanged contact information. Maya felt a flicker of hope. She recognized the danger. If powerful men were truly orchestrating this, they wouldn't hesitate to intimidate or silence a journalist. But Maya couldn't afford to back down. Brianna's future and Maya's freedom hung in the balance. Unbeknownst to them, across the street, a hooded figure lingered in the shadows, snapping photos of their meeting with a long-lens camera. As Maya and Rebecca parted ways, the figure pulled out a phone and fired off a text message, attaching a few of the photos. Subject: meeting with local reporter. Need instructions. The following morning, Maya received a cryptic email from someone claiming to be a friend in the justice system. The message read, "I believe you're innocent. Don't trust anyone in that courthouse. Keep track of every conversation, every interaction. The truth will come out if you persevere." Maya read it twice, heart pounding with mingled dread and hope. Who was this mysterious ally? Was it a trap? She had no way of knowing. Meanwhile, at the FBI's Chicago field office, Special Agent David Chan pored over financial statements from Crestview Bank and cross-referenced them with Maya's case. He traced the movement of $85,000 in small increments. The transfers led to shell accounts, then hopped across multiple platforms. But one name, Harold Whitcomb, appeared in the background of these transactions. Chan saw enough red flags to proceed. He typed up a formal request to escalate this matter to the next level, explaining in detail how Maya Jackson was likely being framed as part of a broader scheme. By day's end, Sean's boss, Supervisory Special Agent Alicia Grant, called him in. "You've got my attention, Sean," she said, holding up his request. "This is big embezzlement, a crooked judge, possibly a high-level cover-up. Are you sure of your evidence?" Sean nodded, swallowing. "I'm building a strong case, but I need more time, more resources. Maya Jackson's trial is in 3 weeks. If we don't act swiftly, an innocent woman could go to prison, and we might lose the chance to expose a major corruption network." Grant pursed her lips, eyeing the data. "All right, I'll authorize a deeper investigation. Keep me updated, and be careful. If Warwick is as powerful as you say, he won't like the FBI snooping around." Chan thanked her and left, a mixture of relief and apprehension swirling in his gut. He suspected the noose was tightening around Maya. She had no idea the depth of the forces aligned against her. But with the FBI now on high alert, Maya had an invisible shield forming around her, one that might just save her life and blow this case wide open. For the next week, Maya threw herself into preparing her defense. She borrowed law textbooks from the public library, pored over every detail of her bank's code of conduct, and scribbled notes about her daily tasks at Crestview Bank. She mapped out her timelines, aligning them with the fraudulent transactions whenever possible. She sent details to Rebecca Murphy, who quietly hunted for leads in the bank's labyrinth of records. The daily grind wore Maya down at times. She felt a wave of despair. She was fighting against powerful men with nearly limitless resources. Yet, through it all, thoughts of Brianna spurred her on. At night, after tucking her daughter in bed, Maya reread that cryptic email from the unknown friend in the justice system. It was strangely comforting to believe someone out there believed her. One afternoon, Maya was stacking her documents on the kitchen table when the doorbell rang. Cautious, she peered through the peephole. A slender Asian man in a neat suit stood in the hallway, glancing at a folder in his hand. Maya's heart pounded. She didn't recognize him, but she recalled the day she'd been arrested. Did an officer wear a similar suit? She wasn't sure. She opened the door a crack. "Yes?" "Miss Jackson," the man asked gently. "My name is David Chan. I'm with the FBI." He held up an identification badge. Maya's eyes widened. Part of her was terrified. Was she about to be rearrested? But she also recalled the mention of the FBI in that cryptic email. Tentatively, she let him inside. Chan surveyed the humble living room, noting Brianna's toys strewn about. He smiled politely and asked if she was alone. Maya nodded. Brianna was at school, for which Maya was grateful. She didn't want to alarm her child. "I'm here because your case has come across my desk," he said, settling onto the couch. "I believe there's significant evidence to indicate you're being framed." Maya's breath caught. "Framed? You can help me?" "That's our hope," Sean said carefully. I can't promise immediate results, but my team and I are looking into Judge Warwick and various associates at Crestview Bank. We think you were made the scapegoat for a large-scale embezzlement scheme. Tears of relief prickled Maya's eyes. I don't know how to thank you. Nobody seems to believe me, and I can't afford a lawyer good enough to go up against them. Chan nodded sympathetically. I understand. Unfortunately, you still have to appear in court, but if we gather enough evidence on our end, we can blow this case wide open. That might lead to a dismissal of charges in criminal indictments against those involved. Maya's heart soared, but she tempered her hope. What do you need from me? Any documentation you have, emails, memos, transaction records, personal notes, anything that might show your innocence or hint at wrongdoing from others. Also, be careful. If these people sense a federal investigation, they might try to intimidate or bribe you, or worse. Maya handed over a thick folder, explaining every piece of paperwork in it. Chan listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. Your trial is in 2 weeks, he said at last. We're moving as quickly as we can, but the FBI's wheels can turn slowly. I'll do my best to expedite everything. She nodded. Thank you, Agent Sean. I can't express how grateful I am. He gave her a kind smile. Hang in there. We'll be in touch. After Chan left, Maya sank onto the couch, a wave of cautious optimism washing over her. Could it be that justice would prevail after all? She felt a renewed determination not just to defend herself, but to see the real criminals unmasked. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Judge Warwick met with Harold Whitcomb in a private room at the local country club. The judge sipped scotch while Harold paced in agitation. We have a problem, Harold said gruffly. Rumor has it the FBI is sniffing around some agent named Sean. Our inside source at the courthouse tipped us off. Warwick set his glass down, jaw tensing. If the FBI is involved, we need to accelerate our plan. Maya's trial date is set. I'll make sure the proceedings are swift and the jury stacked. She won't have time to gather any exculpatory evidence. Harold exhaled. That's not enough. I can't have the FBI poking around the bank records. If they connect the missing funds to me, I'm finished. Warwick's eyes flashed with disdain. Let me handle that. Keep your people quiet and your documents well hidden. We'll bury Maya in so much legal filth she won't see daylight, and by the time the feds catch wind, the matter will be closed. Their conversation turned to hush-hush specifics that would seal Maya's fate if they succeeded. They parted with a firm handshake, each man aware that the stakes had just risen exponentially. Far away, in Washington, D.C., at the J. Edgar Hoover Building, Supervisory Special Agent Alicia Grant skimmed David Chan's latest report. The evidence pointed not just to Judge Warwick, but to a network of local officials involved in corruption spanning years. The case would be complex, requiring airtight surveillance and cautious infiltration. She typed a quick email to Chan. Proceed with caution. We've got you covered. Let's shine a light on Crestview. The wheels of justice, slow as they often are, were turning. Maya Jackson, once alone and overwhelmed, now had allies beyond her imagination. And though the forces against her were formidable, a new chapter of her life was unfolding, one where the powerful manipulations of men like Judge Warwick and Harold Whitcomb would come face to face with the truth and the unstoppable momentum of karma. Tension gripped Crestview County in the days leading up to Maya's trial. Whispers of FBI involvement spread like wildfire among courthouse staff, prosecutors, and law enforcement. Judge Warwick, for his part, seemed to carry on with business as usual, though sharp-eyed observers noted a tautness in his features, an undercurrent of worry behind the well-practiced arrogance. At her apartment, Maya made dinner for Brianna, who chattered about school. The child was blissfully unaware of the impending trial. Maya was grateful for her daughter's innocence. It shielded Brianna from the storm raging just beyond their door. In the midst of stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce, Maya's phone buzzed. She snatched it off the counter to see an unknown number. With a cautious heartbeat, she answered. Miss Jackson, came the low voice. Rebecca Murphy here. Rebecca, hi. Wanted to give you a heads up. I managed to find a junior employee at Crestview Bank who claims that Harold Whitcomb personally altered internal logs to fabricate your involvement in the missing funds. Maya's eyes widened. That's the smoking gun, right? It could be, Rebecca cautioned, but the employee is scared, terrified, actually. They fear for their job, maybe even their safety. I'm trying to convince them to go on record, but it's not easy. Maya exhaled slowly. Tell them they can speak to the FBI. Agent David Chan is investigating. If they can show proof, that might protect them. I already suggested that. They want to remain anonymous, though. They said something about Judge Warwick destroying people who stand in his way. A chill crept up Maya's spine. She knew the fear well. Keep me posted, okay? Absolutely. Stay safe. They hung up. Maya stared at the phone, heart pounding. Someone at the bank was close to revealing the truth. If that happened, Maya's trial might become a lightning rod for all the hidden corruption. She prayed that the frightened employee would come forward. Later that night, Maya tiptoed into Brianna's room. The girl was fast asleep, arms cradling a well-loved teddy bear. Maya felt an overwhelming protectiveness. If the worst happened and Maya ended up behind bars, what would become of Brianna? That thought alone was enough to reignite Maya's resolve. She stepped away quietly, determined to do whatever it took to remain free and care for her daughter. The next morning, Maya was greeted by an unexpected visitor, an older woman with kind brown eyes, wearing a crisp navy suit. She introduced herself as attorney Celeste Evans from a local legal aid organization. Miss Jackson, we heard about your case. One of our donors insists we take it on pro bono. Maya blinked in disbelief. Why would they do that? I'm grateful, but Celeste offered a warm smile. Sometimes people want to do the right thing, even anonymously. If you'll allow me, I'd like to represent you at trial. Maya felt an avalanche of relief. Yes, of course. Thank you, Miss Evans. Thank you. They spent the next several hours huddled at Maya's kitchen table, going over every piece of evidence Maya had. Celeste asked pointed questions, meticulously charting out a defense strategy. Maya marveled at how thorough the woman was, how systematically she poked holes in the prosecution's case. For the first time, Maya felt an actual fighting chance in the courtroom. That same day, far across town, Harold Whitcomb stormed into a small back office of the Crestview Bank, slamming the door behind him. He confronted a trembling clerk named Dennis, the junior employee who had confided in Rebecca Murphy. I know you've been talking to a reporter, Harold growled, pressing a finger into the clerk's chest. You think you're some kind of hero? Let me tell you something, one word from me and your career is over. Understand? Dennis stammered, beads of sweat forming on his brow. I don't know what you're talking about. Harold sneered, don't play innocent. Keep your mouth shut about the logs, it's that simple, unless you want me to make an example out of you. With that, Harold stormed out, leaving Dennis shaking. The clerk fumbled for his phone, a swirl of guilt and fear tearing at him. He knew Maya was innocent, he had proof, and yet the risk of going public weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, FBI agent David Chan met with Supervisory Special Agent Alicia Grant, detailing the progress. So Maya Jackson has a new lawyer, courtesy of an anonymous donor. Interesting, Grant mused, scanning a file. Did you have anything to do with that? Chan shook his head. Not me. Could be someone local who sees the injustice. Grant tapped her pen against the desk. We've collected enough circumstantial evidence to justify a deeper probe into Harold Whitcomb. We also have unconfirmed reports that Judge Warwick has ties to a hush fund financed by bank executives. We need something concrete, a ledger, bank statements, verified witness testimony. Chan nodded. I'm on it. The trial starts in a week. If Maya is forced to face the judge without more evidence in her favor, the outcome could be disastrous. But if we break this wide open beforehand, Warwick won't have the chance to finalize a conviction. Grant sighed, time is our enemy. Chan, get what we need. I'll do my best to push it up the chain. A sense of urgency coursed through Chan. Maya's future hung in the balance, not just Maya's, but potentially that of others who might have been framed before her. Judge Warwick's bigoted bias and unscrupulous connections were rumored to have destroyed more than one life in the past. This was the FBI's chance to end his reign of corruption once and for all. As the sun set, Maya found herself at her kitchen table again, poring over documents with Celeste Evans. They practiced Maya's testimony, running through questions the prosecutor might throw at her. Celeste insisted on Maya maintaining composure, reminding her that the jury's perception would matter as much as the facts. At one point, Maya asked quietly, "Do you believe me, Celeste, that I'm innocent?" Celeste set down her pen, meeting Maya's gaze. "Yes, Maya, I do. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. You have a strong case, and I will do everything in my power to prove it." Maya's chest tightened with gratitude. She offered a small smile. "Thank you. I don't think I can do this alone." Celeste placed a hand on Maya's forearm. "You're not alone anymore. We'll see this through." With that resolve, Maya pressed forward. The forces of corruption were formidable, but she now had an attorney, a journalist digging for truth, and an FBI agent working relentlessly behind the scenes. The day of reckoning was fast approaching, and Maya intended to greet it head-on. She couldn't know every twist fate had in store, but she'd soon discover just how much power the truth could wield when the right people stand up to defend it. At last, the trial day dawned. Maya stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the wrinkles from her best blouse, her hair pulled back neatly, hands trembling from the weight of anticipation. "This is it," she thought, "my chance to clear my name." Celeste Evans arrived to pick Maya up, ushering her into a car. Together, they rode in silence to the courthouse, Maya steeling herself for battle. She clutched a small folder of notes, not that she had any illusions about her power in the courtroom. Everything depended on Celeste's skill and the hope that evidence from the FBI or the journalist might come through in time. Inside the ornate courtroom, Maya took a seat at the defense table. The prosecutor, Jacob Rowan, regarded her with predatory confidence. Judge Warwick presided with his usual air of cold detachment, yet Maya caught a flicker of unease behind the judge's eyes. The case began with opening statements. Rowan painted Maya as a calculating employee who exploited her position at the bank to siphon funds, betraying trust and contractual obligations. He presented it as an open and shut affair, flaunting partial transaction logs. Maya felt her pulse race as the evidence was displayed. It was all carefully curated to point in her direction, her login credentials, her proximity to the accounts. She realized how thoroughly she'd been set up. Celeste responded with calm determination. She introduced Maya's impeccable work history, testimonials from coworkers who trusted her implicitly, and the lack of any suspicious behavior or sudden financial windfall on Maya's part. Miss Jackson's bank account, Celeste pointed out, is perpetually near zero. She drives an old car, she has no assets that correlate to an $85,000 theft. This entire scenario defies logic. Judge Warwick narrowed his eyes but said nothing. Over the next few days, the prosecution called in bank representatives who repeated the same scripted narrative. Maya had access, Maya had opportunity, Maya must have done it. Celeste cross-examined them fiercely, pointing out inconsistencies, but the judge sustained many objections from the prosecution, limiting Celeste's lines of questioning. Maya noticed Warwick's smirk appearing whenever he overruled. The jury seemed divided, some looked sympathetic, others looked swayed by Rowan's confident performance. On the third day, a surprise witness took the stand, Dennis, the junior clerk from Crestview Bank. Maya's heart soared at the sight of him. She remembered Rebecca's calls about him. Was he about to finally tell the truth? Dennis seemed visibly nervous, sweat beading at his temple. He testified that he'd been the one to note the discrepancies in the bank's logs. According to him, Maya's login credentials were used during her lunch breaks, times Maya was known to be away from her desk. Celeste jumped on that detail. "So, Mr. Dennis, you're saying Maya Jackson was never physically at her computer during these suspicious transactions?" "Yes," he stammered. Yes, that's correct. But her credentials were used. That could mean she gave her password to someone else, or maybe she did it remotely." Celeste pressed him. "Did you ever witness Maya step away from her computer for extended periods or see anything unusual about her workstation?" Dennis cast a quick glance at Harold Whitcomb, who sat in the gallery, then he swallowed. I did see a manager, Harold Whitcomb, at her desk once, but I'm not sure if that's relevant." An excited murmur rippled through the courtroom. Maya's heart thundered. This was exactly what she needed. "Could you elaborate?" Celeste asked, but before Dennis could answer, the prosecutor objected. "Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant and speculative." Judge Warwick banged his gavel, sustained. "Move on, Miss Evans." Maya's stomach sank. Warwick was blocking the crucial link that might have exposed Whitcomb's direct involvement. Dennis slumped off the stand, looking both relieved and guilty. Maya realized how deeply intimidation ran. Outside the courthouse that afternoon, Maya caught up with Dennis near the steps. "Thank you for telling even that much," she said quietly. "I know it took courage." He avoided her gaze. "I'm sorry. I couldn't do more. Whitcomb threatened me. I have a family, a sick mother. I just can't lose my job." Maya didn't know whether to console him or resent him. Still, she mustered a gentle tone. "I understand. I appreciate your honesty." The tension inside Maya coiled tighter as the trial neared its final day. With Dennis's partial testimony suppressed by Warwick, the outcome looked bleak. Celeste tried to subpoena the bank's internal computer logs, but the judge ruled it irrelevant or unnecessarily time-consuming. Maya felt trapped in a rigged game. Then, on the eve of closing arguments, Maya received a phone call from Agent Chand. "Maya, we've got something," he said, voice alight with excitement. "We obtained a warrant to search Harold Whitcomb's electronic devices. We found the actual logs. They show Whitcomb repeatedly logging in under your credentials while you were clocked out. That's the smoking gun. We also uncovered communications between Whitcomb and Judge Warwick discussing payoffs." Maya's knees nearly buckled. "Are you serious?" Sean continued, "We're coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office. There's a chance we can move in before the trial concludes. Keep your phone on." Tears of relief blurred Maya's vision. At last, the truth was within reach. That night, Maya and Celeste stayed up late, preparing to incorporate this new evidence if the FBI could get it admitted in time. Maya felt a wave of determination. She imagined the look on Judge Warwick's face when confronted with FBI evidence. The very thought propelled her forward. But Judge Warwick was no fool. He must have sensed the net closing. That night, he made one final call to Harold Whitcomb, telling him to destroy anything incriminating, to ensure that Maya's trial ended before the feds could intervene. They agreed on one last push to convict Maya tomorrow. Neither man realized that their phone lines were already tapped. The FBI had it all on record. The storm was about to break. The final day of trial dawned heavy with tension. Maya arrived at the courthouse, bracing for the worst and hoping for the best. A strange hush hung in the air as she stepped into the building. She saw no sign of Harold Whitcomb. Judge Warwick sat at the bench, stone-faced, his smirk replaced by tight-lipped sternness. Prosecutor Rowan gave his closing argument, summing up Maya as a cunning criminal. Maya's stomach churned. She prayed Celeste would deliver a rebuttal strong enough to instill doubt in the jury's mind. Celeste stood, her voice resonating with calm conviction. She demolished the notion of Maya having any motive, hammered home the inconsistent timeline, and reminded the jury of Dennis's testimony. Though partial, it still revealed Maya's credentials being used when she was absent. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Celeste concluded, "my client is a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. She had neither reason nor opportunity to commit this crime. The true culprit remains hidden, and we have reason to believe Miss Jackson was framed. I urge you to look at the facts, not the assumptions." The jury seemed engaged, some nodding thoughtfully. The judge gave the usual instructions for deliberation, but Maya noticed a sheen of sweat on Warwick's forehead. He was anxious. Just as the jury was about to be escorted out for deliberation, an unexpected commotion erupted. The courtroom doors swung open, revealing a group of federal agents led by David Chan. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Maya's heart leapt to her throat. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Your Honor," Chan said, stepping forward, "but we have federal warrants for the arrest of Harold Whitcomb, as well as a search and seizure order for evidence that pertains to this trial." Judge Warwick's face blanched. He pounded his gavel with unprecedented force. "What is the meaning of this disruption, Agent? You have no authority to barge into my court without prior notice." Sean held his ground. "With all due respect, we do, Your Honor. We have evidence that Miss Jackson was framed by Harold Whitcomb, who collaborated with others, and we have reason to believe you, Judge Warwick, have aided in covering this up. We also have a warrant for your arrest." The entire courtroom exploded into chaos, spectators shrieking, reporters scrambling. Maya's eyes went wide in disbelief. She gripped the edge of the table, uncertain whether to laugh or cry. Celeste rested a hand on Maya's shoulder, expression triumphant. "Bailiff!" Judge Warwick barked, "Remove these men. This is an outrage. I'm the presiding judge here." The FBI exchanged uncertain glances with the federal agents. Chan calmly flashed the official warrants, "Stand down. Federal jurisdiction supersedes. We have conclusive proof, Your Honor, that you accept payments in exchange for manipulating court outcomes and forging evidence against Miss Jackson. Our agents are already detaining Harold Whitcomb, who attempted to flee the county this morning." Judge Warwick's eyes darted toward the side exit as though contemplating an escape, but the presence of multiple federal agents quashed that thought. He stood, raging, "This is slander. Lies. I've done nothing wrong, my rulings were fair and within the law." "Then you can explain that to a federal judge," Chan replied, stepping forward. "For now, you're coming with us." Stunned silence enveloped the courtroom. The jury looked on, mouths agape. Maya's heart hammered, everything was happening so fast. She watched as two agents guided Judge Warwick away, the man cursing under his breath, sputtering in indignation. Chan then approached Maya, voice gentler, "Miss Jackson, you are free to go. We have evidence that exonerates you completely. The U.S. Attorney's Office will move to dismiss all charges effective immediately." Tears flooded Maya's eyes. She clung to Celeste, who blinked back her own emotional wave. Relief poured through Maya's body and soul. A day ago, she had prepared for a last stand, possibly facing years in prison. Now, the unraveling web of corruption had exposed the truth, freeing her from the clutches of injustice. The shocked jurors were dismissed. Reporters scrambled to get Maya's statement, their cameras flashing, but Maya felt too overwhelmed to speak coherently. She wanted to hug her daughter, to savor her freedom. She managed a few words, I'm just grateful justice was served. I'm innocent." Celeste guided Maya away from the swirling media frenzy, ushering her through a side corridor. Outside, Maya inhaled the crisp air, tears slipping down her cheeks as she gazed at the sky. She was free, truly free. A short distance away, Agent Chan addressed a group of cameras, explaining how an extensive investigation revealed a conspiracy to frame Maya, funneling blame for stolen funds away from Whitcomb and his network. He also confirmed that Judge Warwick was implicated, having accepted bribes and obstructed justice. The paparazzi clamored for Maya, but she slipped away, exhausted and emotional. She needed to hold Brianna, to let her daughter's laughter remind her that this nightmare was finally over. Yet, Maya also knew her life had changed. The truth had come out, but the trauma would linger. She'd faced the darkest sides of corruption, racism, and betrayal, and she had survived. The headlines would soon blare about the racist judge who smirked at a black woman standing alone in court, only for the highest FBI authorities to blow his cover. Maya hoped her story would inspire others in similar straits, showing that even the most formidable systems of corruption could be toppled by perseverance and the power of truth. In the weeks following the dramatic conclusion of Maya's trial, Crestview County seemed in upheaval. Front-page headlines bore Maya's name alongside the scandal that rocked the local justice system: Judge Ronald Warwick arrested on corruption charges, bank executive implicated. In the immediate aftermath, Maya found herself thrust into an unwelcome spotlight. News crews parked outside her apartment, clamoring for interviews. She gently turned most of them down, choosing instead to focus on Brianna and the small kernel of normalcy they could reclaim. "I want things to be quiet again," Maya confided to Rebecca Murphy when the journalist popped by. "For Brianna's sake, she's confused, seeing all those cameras." Rebecca nodded sympathetically, "I understand, but Maya, your story is important. It exposes a broken system. If you're willing to talk, I can make sure it's handled respectfully." Maya sighed, "Let me think about it. For now, I just want to breathe free air." Behind bars, Judge Warwick awaited trial. Rumors suggested a lengthy list of charges, from taking bribes to tampering with evidence and civil rights violations. Harold Whitcomb, caught trying to skip town, now faced his own mountain of indictments: embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The pair who once exuded unassailable power were reduced to wearing orange jumpsuits, scurrying between court appearances. Karma hit hard. With the evidence provided by Agent Chan and his FBI colleagues, the case against them was airtight. Former associates distanced themselves in droves, seeking to avoid the same fate. Additional victims, people who had questioned rulings in Warwick's courtroom, began coming forward, emboldened by Maya's victory. Each new testimony nailed the coffin shut on Warwick's legacy of corruption and bigotry. Meanwhile, Maya met with attorneys, Celeste by her side, to discuss a potential civil suit against Crestview Bank and the county judicial system. Maya didn't relish going back into legal proceedings, but she needed compensation for the nightmare she endured. More importantly, she wanted institutional change. "I'm not doing this for money," Maya told Celeste firmly. "I want them to feel consequences so they won't do this to anyone else." Celeste agreed wholeheartedly. "We'll ask for a settlement that includes an overhaul of bank oversight and a review of all Warwick's past rulings. That's the only way to ensure real reform." The first time Maya stepped foot back at Crestview Bank, this time flanked by her attorney, she felt a sting of anxiety. She was there to pick up paperwork for the civil suit, and the hush that fell across the employees was palpable. Eyes darted in every direction, as if they couldn't believe Maya had returned triumphant. One older clerk approached her, tears in her eyes. "Miss Jackson, I'm so sorry for everything you went through. We had no idea." Maya mustered a small, understanding smile. "I appreciate your concern. It's over now." Yet, Maya knew the memory would never fully leave her. She thought of the nights in the detention cell, the weight of the accusations, the racist smirk on Warwick's face. Healing would take time, but at least she was free, and her daughter would see that justice, however delayed, still had a chance in America. At a quiet press conference organized by Agent Chan and Supervisory Special Agent Grant, Maya mustered her courage to speak briefly to reporters. She thanked the FBI for their diligence, thanked her attorney, and delivered a heartfelt message: "For anyone out there facing injustice, please don't lose hope. Sometimes the system seems stacked against you, but there are good people who will stand by your side when it matters most. Keep fighting." Applause rang out. Behind the scenes, Maya and Brianna worked to rebuild their lives. Maya found a new job at a smaller financial firm, one that admired her courage. The press eventually moved on to the next story, but Maya's case left its mark, spurring official inquiries into how many others had been wronged by Warwick's judicial misconduct. On the day Maya's civil suit was settled, resulting in a multi-million-dollar payout and a legally mandated audit of Crestview Bank's internal practices, Maya allowed herself a single moment of pride. She deposited a portion into an education fund for Brianna, another portion she donated to a civil rights nonprofit advocating for court reform. The cycle of injustice would not continue on her watch, not if she had any say in it. As for Judge Warwick, Maya learned from news reports that he attempted to cut a deal by flipping on other corrupt officials. The pleas fell on deaf ears. One by one, more people testified against him, painting a portrait of a man who believed his position, his race, and his connections put him above the law. But the law had finally come calling. One bright Sunday morning, Maya and Brianna strolled through the park, hand in hand. Brianna laughed as she ran across the grass, free from the shadow of her mother's tribulations. Maya took a moment to close her eyes, feeling the sun's warmth, the breeze on her cheeks. She was grateful not for the pain she'd endured, but for the lessons it taught her about perseverance, about community, about the unstoppable force that truth can be. And while Maya would never forget the image of that racist judge smirking at her across the courtroom, she also now had a greater image: the day he was taken away in cuffs, no longer able to harm another life with his corruption and hate. In the end, Maya stood strong, and justice, though battered and bruised, shone through like a beacon of hope. Maya Jackson's journey reminds us that truth can pierce even the darkest clouds of corruption. When all odds seemed stacked against her, when a racist judge, a powerful banker, and a system built to intimidate came crashing down, Maya stood firm in her belief they fear for their job, maybe even had justice would prevail. She found allies where she least expected, in a dedicated journalist, a compassionate attorney, and a relentless FBI agent determined to uproot the rot in Crestview County. Their combined resolve toppled a twisted empire of bribery and oppression, proving that one voice, amplified by courage, can spark a chain reaction of change. Thank you so much for watching and sharing in Maya's harrowing yet inspiring story. If you found her triumph as powerful as we did, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Dark Stories for more tales of perseverance, justice, and hope. Your support helps us continue shining a light on the truth.